guest is Phyllis Woodfine, a coach, speaker, osteopath who is specialized in emotional resilience. She's here to share a powerful insight to how we can build confidence and show up as our best selves. Before I start asking Phyllis some questions, I'm actually going to get her to introduce herself first of all.
Hi, Faith. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good enough introduction for me. I've had many and varied things that have gone on in my career, but basically I've always worked with people over the last 40 plus years of sort of like 44 years of being in working life. It has moved from different things in that I was originally a building surveyor, but because I worked in environmental health, I dealt a lot with people and them not living in great accommodation, them having health problems, disabled facilities grants, all of that. So I've always been dealing with people and having to help them through things. And that probably is part of the reason why then when I went into body work in sort of like about 30 years ago, I then started helping teach, then became a lecturer and then supported students. So that's how the coaching and the realization of all of that confidence and us needing to look after our own and manage our nervous system and how we showed up for ourselves and for others. And so all of it's been a real interest for me, and it's how I've moved through my career as I've gone on, and probably how I'll continue to move through.
Okay. So I just wanted to start off, confidence is a very important thing, especially in today's society. Some people say that it makes or breaks you. So in terms of confidence, I'd just like you to firstly tell us what confidence means to you personally, and then give us a definition of confidence.
So I've got to admit, I'm not a proponent of the fake it till you make it. I think it's very much confidence is about thinking about what it is that you want to do and knowing your ability to do it. And if you've done the work to be able to do it, nobody is perfect at anything. And I think that's possibly where one of the problems comes, that people think you've got to be perfect to be confident. And I do think there is an air of, if you accept your fallibility almost, that you can be confident about the other stuff that you do and recognize that you're not going to be perfect at everything, that everything isn't set in stone. And then that gives you a little bit more support and help around the things that you're doing. And if that means that you're confident, that means that you're confident as far as I'm concerned. So personally, for that's how it works for me. I'm not confident in everything I do, but I often think to myself, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? If I don't do it, how am I going to know? So until you give it a go, you don't know that you're going to be able to do it or not. And it's that giving it go is the bit that is the confidence part for me.
Okay, I just want to go back very quickly. You used the word, I haven't actually heard that word before. So maybe some other people haven't heard it as well. I don't know if I can even pronounce it. Fallibility? Did you say something?
Fallibility, yeah. So fallibility. So that means that so if you're fallible, it means that you're not always going to get it right. You can make mistakes. And for me, I always think of it as sort of like mistakes are something that we learn from. So it's not wrong. It's not, for you to be infallible, you never make mistakes. You're probably thinking you're that perfect person, and actually you never are the perfect person. So that fallibility is accepting that you can make mistakes, but you can learn from them. Everything we do, we learn from. And I truly do believe that. Sometimes, depending on where we are in life and what's going on, we might be like really mortified. You're really embarrassed by what you've done wrong or whatever, like thinking of your teenage years and you doing something not quite how you was hoping it would work out. And it's then, what do you learn from that? And so that's what I mean about the fallibility. We should always be prepared that we can make mistakes. That doesn't mean that we're, less of a person for doing it. And that's why I think some of the confidence bit comes from, because we don't want to make mistakes, and even confident people make mistakes. So it's recognizing that we can do that.
And I also guess it depends on one's environment, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's going to play a big part of things as well. If you are in a learning environment, or if you're in an environment where you're allowed to make mistakes, that is obviously going to be a lot easier. If you're in an environment where you've got people who do not want you, they want you to be infallible, they want you to get everything right, actually, that is going to play on your nervous system and you're more likely to make mistakes. So, yes, definitely the environment you're in can make that difference. And I think as humans, we've got to try and make it the best for people. And also recognizing that, it's one of those things that we often say, sort of like when you look at NLP, we talk about, so it's neuro-linguistic programming, neuro-linguistic programming, one of the things I'm trained in. But they often talk about the reframe, and they also talk about you not necessarily, I've forgotten what I was going to say. Go on to something else. It's gone, jumped out of my mind. There you are. See, that's not being infallible. That's knowing I can forget what I'm going to say.
So one of the other things I wanted to find out is how has your confidence evolved over the years in terms of like what you do and every day?
Yeah. I think probably one of the things that as definitely with age, it's been easier. And I remember what I was going to say. Nobody can make you feel anyway. We make our feel. That's what I was going to say. So if you're feeling unconfident about something, or you're feeling upset about something, it is your feelings that you have decided, I'm upset about that. Now, they might have said something that upset you, as in it was upsetting or it wasn't very nice, but you choose how you react to it. So we've got control over that. So going back to what you just asked me there, over the years, yeah, it's definitely evolved in terms of it's easier as you get older because you've got more experience, just generally, if unless you're living in a box and you haven't got any experience of anything. But if you've been living out in the world, the likelihood is that you've learned a few things anyway, and that's probably made it a little bit easier. But it's also been that, when you learn new things and you start to take on that information and you have conversations with more people, that's how my confidence, for want of a better word, has evolved over the years. And I wouldn't necessarily say that I am the most confident person, but I know what I'm interested in and I know what I want to try and help people with or tell them about. And that's probably where some of the confidence comes from. But then there's always that little bit of you that think, am I not good enough? And we will all have that.
Yes. Previously, before you answered that question, you spoke about we make ourselves feel, I don't know whether it's lack of confidence or if somebody says something to us, but sometimes I guess individuals or people can't help the way they actually feel, when somebody says something to them. So if they're in that type of situation, how can they reframe their mindset?
Yeah. So I think it's a lot of, if somebody says something to you that's upset you, it's remembering, yes, you can be upset, but you can also choose not to dwell in that. So it's like they've said something that's really upsetting, that you've not liked what they've said, what they've done, and you've felt that's actually made me feel really bad. But what you then do is like, right, well, that's upset me. And I know that they've said that and that's their opinion, but that's their opinion. And I'm not going to take that on board. I'm not going to allow that to come into me. If you've done the work, you've tried your best, then you've tried your best. Maybe I can do better, but whether or not that's the case. And I think it's that age-old thing of when you're younger and somebody might have said something to you and you take that on as part of your personality or part of your being. Somebody might have said something as simple as, you're not great at maths. So So you might have been doing a maths test and you didn't get a great mark, and they said, you're rubbish at maths. So now you've gone through your whole life taking that bit of information saying, I'm rubbish at maths.
Yeah.
But that might not necessarily be the case, because if you then look, can you add up? I know that people don't have the checkbooks now, but if you was given a bill, can you work out how much things add up to? Can you subtract? Can you balance things a little bit? If you're cooking, do you know what this much weighs and that much and how much that adds together? Actually, if you can do all those things, you're not bad at maths, but you've taken on this, I'm bad at maths, and stuck with it. And it's the same. It's just like, it's somebody's opinion. Unless you've been really horrible to somebody, how they react is how they react. And how you react is how you react. And you do have control over that, because you can think, yes, I'm upset about something. No, I don't have confidence in this. But what would I need to have confidence? What do I need to change in order to be confident around it? Is it I need to know more information? Or is it, do I just accept, do you know what? I know a lot about this thing. So regardless of what they're going to be, I'm confident in the knowledge that I have. And it's trying to say that to yourself enough. And the reality is, if we talk to ourselves, if we tell our brains things, say it out loud or write it down, whatever works for you, then we'll start listening to it. If we say enough, I'm really stupid, just in, I don't know, you might have dropped something and you go, gosh, I'm so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not stupid. You just happen to have dropped something, but your brain's hearing you say, I'm stupid. Whereas if you just said, gosh, I've been clumsy in that moment, that's something totally different. That's not putting yourself down. And it's the more we say those little things that put us down that we ebb away some of our confidence.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to some of the things you've said, which have been very important. Sometimes, or, people, some people might be listening to this, and it's something that's been ingrained in them since they were, since childhood. How will they help themselves in terms of like just overcoming it? Because sometimes, if you've grown up with this type of mindset, it's difficult to change it.
Yeah. And it is, and it requires work. And that work is you looking at, what are the truths behind that? If somebody says you're really no good at doing something, and they told you that when you were 5, 6 years old, something like that, and you're now 25 or you're 45 or you're 20, is that still the truth?
Yeah.
What's the evidence to support that? And that's what you look for. You look for the evidence to support whether or not you have or you haven't done something. Is it true? We tell ourselves things and they're not necessarily true. And what happens is, it's like we create this library of information, and somebody says something to us, and we now put that as a book on our shelf, and we hold on to that book. You can give the book back. You don't have to hold on to the book. You can give it back. That was somebody's opinion, but it wasn't necessarily the truth. Is it still the truth? Are you still no good at maths? Are you still, or is it just that, well, that's not quite your thing? Is it still that you're somebody who's not able to do whatever it is? Is it just you didn't know how to do it at that time, and you actually can now learn to do whatever it is? So it's looking at whether or not the statement is true, and can you do anything about it? And do you actually want to change it? It's making that decision, because sometimes we don't want to do the things. That's why we're no good at it. I don't particularly want to go, I don't know, I don't want to go out of a plane, jump out of a plane in a parachute. Yeah, that just does not appeal to me.
At all. Me too.
And I've abseiled, I've done many a thing. I can tell you another one. I really and truly would not want to go potholing, which is, when you go underground, these small spaces and wiggle around. I used to take kids away camping, so I've done many things. The thing I wouldn't do was potholing. Oh, well, that's just because you're scared. Yeah, right, I'm scared, but it isn't something that I need to add to my abilities, so I'm not doing it. So you're allowed to not add things to your arsenal, to your tools. But equally, is it because you don't want to do it? Is it because you're scared and you think that'd be really awful to do it, but you might learn how to do it. There's different ways, but it's recognizing what's stopping you from doing it, or why don't you want to do it? Or is it just somebody said that to you years ago and you've taken that, as I said, as a book, you've put it on your shelves and you're keeping it there in your library of information about yourself, when in reality, it actually isn't the truth anymore. Is it true? And that's what I would say that you need to do for yourself. Is there evidence to support this? Or is there, is the only evidence to support it from when I was 5 years old and I've not done anything with it now that I'm 20 or 25 or 45 or 65? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's looking at that. And what we don't often do is look at the evidence to support those things that we now think we're not able to do.
No, that's really powerful. Thank you. So what are some everyday habits? I know you've actually mentioned some of them, but everyday habits or practices that can help boost confidence?
I think it's one of those big things of talking to yourself. So if you don't have that inner voice or that inner monologue, write it down. What have I done well today? Try and, if you can't do it every day, try and do it regularly, whatever that means to you. Voice note yourself if that's a way of doing it. When you wake up in the morning, what am I grateful for? What am I really pleased that I did? What amazing things did I do? What things would I want to do? So it's regularly putting those things into your everyday life that can start to boost your confidence. It's looking at, what is it I want to do and what can I do and what have I done? And considering those things.
I absolutely love that. And if a person has, or if a person, how would you or a person navigate imposter syndrome, especially when they're stepping into, or they have like life challenges when it comes to new work or being in a new environment?
Yeah. That's something that is gonna probably challenge all of us all the time. We're going to have it all the time. I can tell you 101 people, Maya Angelou, respect her so much. Before she passed, I was lucky enough to see her talk live a couple of times. She had imposter syndrome at time. Oprah Winfrey's spoken about it. There's lots of people that speak about having had imposter syndrome. The idea for me, it's going to happen. Accept that might happen, that it might be that you get it regularly, hopefully not, but that you might get it. And what you do, again, as I've said beforehand, is it true? So this new role you've got, did you apply for it? Somebody given you the job. Somebody has thought that you could do it. So already there's that bit to say you're not an imposter, right? Somebody's given you that opportunity and said, this is something I feel you can do. So you're already saying to yourself, look, somebody said this to me. Is it a challenge that you weren't expecting? Okay, see it as that challenge. Okay, so this is something I haven't done before, but what can I do to do the best that I can in this situation? You can also start channeling those people who have done things. So often, when I was younger, and Oprah Winfrey, she is one of those people that I greatly admire. But she's probably about maybe 10 years older than me. So she was, ahead. But it's looking at how she speaks and how she talks about things and how she tries to find out information. You don't have to know everything. And what you don't know, you bring others on to give you that information. You find out from them and you accredit them with it. But to be a good speaker, you got to know what you're talking about, as in what you are talking about. But you don't have to know everything. So, when I get on stage, people say to me, are you really scared? That's the worst thing to have to do. As far as I'm concerned, I'm talking about stuff that I know about. If I don't know about something, I'll say it. I'll hold my hands up. I'm not embarrassed to say I don't know everything. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, it's usually because you're thinking, I should know it all. I should know everything. I shouldn't get it wrong. That's not the case. It's knowing what you know to do it. And if it's a challenge, but it's exactly that, a challenge, that means you start looking to see what else is there to help me. What do I need to know to do the best I can do in this situation? And I think for me, that's how we then try and overcome some of this imposter syndrome when we get it. And as I said, it will be something that comes. It's almost like you hit one level and then something else comes in. You know, why are you doing this thing? Because we're humans and we need to challenge ourselves sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's really powerful. I'm even speechless because I'm so hooked on what you're saying. So I know you've already mentioned some of the stuff that I'm just about to say, but how would a person stay confident if when they don't receive external validation? I know a lot of people, expect those things, but we should still try to be confident without, people telling us how fantastic we are.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, the reality of it is, again, as humans, we like to be praised. However, our brain doesn't always realize where the praise is coming from. So when you do something that you're really pleased with, or you're confident about, or that you did good, celebrate it. Celebrate your wins. Celebrate when you do something that you are really proud of. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Do it for yourself. And with a bit of luck, they will do it. But sometimes they're not going to do it. So, if you can't be happy in yourself and praise yourself, then don't be expected for other people not to do it. And I know in certain jobs, in certain situations, you might have a boss, or you might have, a colleague or somebody who's never going to say, well done. You can say well done to yourself. It's starting to accept validation from yourself for the things that you're doing. As long as it's not vanity, but if it's really something that and that's not saying that we can't have moments of being vain, but it's, if you're celebrating something you've done, recognize it. How many times have you done something where you've thought, okay, I did well, and then you've just moved on to the next thing? I think of, times when, like, I've passed an exam or something, and at my age there's nobody telling me well done or anything, so I've got to tell myself well done. I've got to say, do you know what, you put the work in, well done you. My brain's hearing that. It doesn't care that it's not hearing it from somebody else. It's hearing it, and that's what you've got to do. And that also helps sometimes with the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, that is really powerful, Phyllis. Thank you. And just looking at confidence in action, how would a person project confidence without coming across as arrogant? Yes, I know you mentioned something a little bit about that, but how will they project that?
Yeah, I think it's in terms of that, I think it's usually around where the arrogance is almost like where you're trying to put somebody else down. So with the confidence, it's like, I know about this, and that's why I'm talking about it, but I'm still willing to hear what you're saying. I'm still willing, when I've spoken at things, I'm talking to people who probably know a lot about what I'm talking about. And I will say that, I'll acknowledge that. And I think that confidence is acknowledging that those people around you might actually know something about what you're talking about, might even know a bit more, but this is your perspective on it. And so you're confident about your own perspective, but that's not willing to accept what other people say. And it's, if somebody says something that challenges what you say, and it's like, I hadn't thought about it in that way, I'll have a look at it. I'll consider that and I'll get back to you. So that at least, the arrogant way would be, right, thanks for that. And there's a big difference between thanks for that. Yeah, okay, we've heard you, as opposed to, it's not a perspective I thought of. I'm going to look into that and I'll get back to you. And that's that difference, is that you're confident in what you've done. You recognizing that there might be another way of looking at something, and you're going to get back to them, not just, I'm dismissing you out of hand. And the dismissing out of hand is the arrogant side of things. Whereas the, okay, I'll look at it because I'm going to consider that I might not have thought of that. That's that confidence in what you've done.
Just talking about that, do you think sometimes it's different when it comes to like different cultures? Because some people may come across, a
Yeah.
bit arrogant.
Yeah. I mean, and definitely that can be, and it's that understanding of, like the Germanic way of being very full, and I'm using that, because I've spoken to many people sort of like, from the north of the world, but talking, be very, very straightforward about things and just saying it as it is. And that can come across as a bit abrupt and therefore arrogant. But then we have to realize we're in a world where there's lots of different, certainly if we're, living in the southeast of England, there are a lot of different cultures that are mixed in there. Again, one of the typical ones that I often used to come across, I come from a Jamaican heritage, and it would be, now they wouldn't use the word assertive. They would say, well, you're being loud, you're being bullish, you're being whatever. And actually, no, I was just standing up for myself. I was just being assertive around what was going on there because that's how I've been taught. Equally, I come from quite a large family, when we would all get together, we'd all be quite loud because that was the way you got heard. Now, I've got friends who come from Irish families who quite large Irish and they're exactly the same. And they often say, well, the Jamaicans and the Irish, they're one in the same. We'll do the same. We'll talk quite loud. And we don't realise that we're talking that loud. So those cultural differences in there. But there's also the cultural difference of where we've got to have the confidence. We talk about the Americans. The Americans act a lot more confident than people from the UK do. Now, are they arrogant in their confidence, or is that the way their culture has developed things for them? Part of it is cultural, and it's like, if you can back up what you're saying, but you're also still able at that time to recognize, okay, somebody is threatened by what I'm saying, or they're not understanding, you can then ask them. But it's also incumbent upon us to have a look to see, are there those cultural differences? As in, is it that they're from a different culture and they expect us to, they're not used to the way that we do things, the when in Rome sort of thing. Does it mean you have to then change yourself to be like that? No, I don't think it does. But I think what you do need to do is to be aware that if somebody is threatened, so if somebody says to me, well, actually, you're really quite aggressive about that. And I'll say, aggressive? How do you mean I'm aggressive? Now, they might still see that as being aggressive, whereas I'm seeing it, I'm being assertive. I'm now saying to you, you've said I'm aggressive. How do you mean that I'm aggressive? And then I'm going to sit back and wait. Now, you can't, if they already have an appropriation as far as they're concerned for how a culture is, you can't necessarily change that. But you can do what you can do to be the best that you can be.
And what role does body language and voice play in expressing confidence?
So I think, there's the power pose as they talk about. So that's almost like that Superman, or Wonder Woman pose where you're standing really confident, you're standing as that person who really putting this forward. But that doesn't necessarily always work for all of us. So I think it's also just being in that place where you say to yourself, I do know. So you need to start saying, as I've said beforehand, regularly saying this to yourself. But then when you're doing something, do try and keep your shoulders up and back. All right, you might not be able to do the full Superman, but if you've got your shoulders back, your chest up, and you're not, if I'm like this, I'm already not looking very confident, so it's just making yourself in a position where you're actually a little bit more open. Slow your speech down a little bit, because I'm somebody who talks really fast most of the time, not as fast as some of these young people of 25 or 30 who I'm often then going, what did they say? But I know I do talk quite fast. So when I'm doing something where I'm talking to people and I want to get across the information, I slow it down. I slow those words down, and I might enunciate a little bit more, you know, just say things a little bit clearer than I would do ordinarily, because I want to get the information across, and I want to get it in across in a way that I know what I'm talking about. I know that I'm being really clear, I'm being really open, and I'm delivering it in a way that shows that to you. But if you're doing something where you're just, you know, your shoulders are down, your voice is quite quiet, nobody's going to believe that you're confident about what you're doing. So it really is changing your belief. And that might be where the one bit of the fake it till you make it comes in. But I don't think it's faking it. That's why I'm saying that I don't like that expression, because what I want people to do is to recognize what it is that they're giving, whether or not it's a speech they're giving, whether or not they're showing a colleague how to do something. It's having the confidence in your knowledge around it, as well as then doing it with that conviction as you perform whatever it is that you're doing.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. One of the things I wanted to talk about as well is, you know, we live in the digital age, and the way, you know, how I see things is when you go on the internet, everybody seems very you know, people just look very confident in the things they do, but sometimes in reality, it's not always the case. And you know, when it comes to dealing with young people as well, in terms of how we're bringing up children, it's difficult to kind of navigate or tell them how it is to be confident about themselves, because what they see on social media is totally different from reality, or they may not even be confident in themselves because of what they see out there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's very, very true. Social media is, I remember many, sort of like a few years ago, I saw a photo, I don't even know, it might still be on there, where they had a picture, two pictures. And one was of an apple, the real shiny, red, rosy side of an apple. And then the next shot was of the same apple, but it was turned around the other way and it was rotten to the core. And it's just like, what you're looking at, you don't know what you're looking at on social media because it isn't really right there in front of you. So, you know, an example being the other day, my sister said to me, I'd had a photo, I can't even remember if it was on Facebook or on LinkedIn, and it was a photo that I'd had done at, professionally. So I'd gone to a networking event. It was like a weekend workshop type thing, but there was a photographer there who took some photos. Now, you can probably tell I don't do makeup, can't be bothered most of the time. And when I did have hair, I couldn't even be bothered with that. You know, I had locks down to here, but they were always in a bun, always back. The girl who used to do my hair used to say, why don't you do something with it? I haven't got time. I never had time. So the easy thing to do is shave it all off. It's a lot easier. So it's not something I'm particularly worried about doing. But on this thing, they had a makeup artist there who actually did do black women as well. So she said, oh, I'll put some makeup on you. And I went, oh, I don't really do makeup. So anyway, she did put some on, and then she said, just let me know if you don't like it. So I said, yeah, I'm not mad keen. If we can take the lipstick back, if we can do this. So, you know, because as far as I was concerned, this was now an image of me that I don't recognize. Yeah. Anyway, she did. She took the photo after having the makeup, took it back, and it was to a point where I thought, oh no, I feel like me still. Anyway, my sister then, who I always accuse of stalking, because she's one who goes on there but never comments on anything, and you hardly ever see anything on her page. She then phoned me and she said, oh, I saw there's a new picture of you. Was it airbrushed? And I went, what? So she said, she said, well, it looked like it was airbrushed. I went, no, what do you mean airbrushed? Why would I airbrush it? I was like, realised what it was. I actually had a little bit of lipstick on. She's this. And that's what I said to her. I said, oh, I had some makeup on. And she actually put, so it's seeing that isn't how she's used to seeing me. So you don't know what's coming up on social media. You really have no idea. So all you can do is be your own self and take something at face value, but at the same time, recognize that unless you're in conversation with that person, unless you know everything about themselves, you can't always tell. You have to hope that they're being friendly, kind, honest, authentic, but you don't always know. So it's, do not be disheartened if you then find out that that's not what they're doing, that they're not being them true selves, that they're not being, they're not being the rotten core, and actually they're showing the shiny side of things. Those are the extremes of it. But I think it's trying to be yourself as much as you can, but equally realizing you don't have to put your whole life on social media. And some people don't. I put stuff on there, but I don't put anything that I'm not wanting anybody else to see. Some of my life is private. Why would I put it on there? It always amazes me what people do have on there. But equally, I'm from a very different generation to a lot of the young people who are doing that. But I think, as I said, as far as when we're looking at what's out there, take it at face value, but also recognize that sometimes people don't always tell the truth. Don't let it affect what your truth is.
No, I think that's very important. Yeah, thank you for that. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you, someone has asked me to ask you this question, is what advice would you give to someone that is struggling with self-doubt?
Okay. It's looking at, I'd always say, as I said beforehand about that regularly telling yourself, patting yourself on the back and talking to yourself about the things that you have done well. When it comes to self-doubt, it's like, what's causing it? What can you do to allay it? So is it that the self-doubt is over you don't know enough about whatever the situation is? If that's the case, find out what the situation is, what the information is you need. If it is just generally in yourself, it's like, well, what is it? What is it that you want to do? What would make you really, really happy? And what's your reasons for doing it? I often say, what's his name? Simon Sinek. Start with your why. It's very, very true. Look at why are you doubting what you're doing? Why are you doubting yourself? Is it that lack of confidence? And what do you need to get that confidence back? What do you need to look at? We're all going to have moments where we just think, I'm not good enough, or did I do that well enough? If you've done your best, you've done your best, and you can't do any more than that. And it's that self-doubt, again, is going back to exactly what I said beforehand. Is it true? Is this true? I'm doubting myself. Is it true that what I'm doubting myself about is for this reason? What are the things that uphold it? And more often than not, you'll find there isn't anything that supports it. It's just a story you're telling yourself. And so what story are you telling yourself? Are you really telling yourself the truth, or you're telling yourself something you've made up? So it's trying to work out those things. And then the more you look at it and think, actually, my reasons for doing this is this, and therefore I'm really confident that that's what I want to do. So why am I doubting myself now?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. If someone was, okay, if you were to give 3 top advice to someone, what will those 3 top be for them to be confident?
So I'd always question yourself. The first thing would be question yourself on, is it true? So that lack of confidence, is it true? What are the reasons behind this? What are the reasons behind this, and where has it come from? So that's a big thing. Have you told yourself today how good you are at least one thing? Because there's something that you've done well. So I would actually say every day, tell yourself of one thing you've done well. Whether or not, the simplest thing, it could be actually, do you know what? I remember to put that rubbish out that I've forgotten to put out every single day for the last week. I've done it. Now, it might seem something simple, but your brain's hearing you, really giving yourself a compliment around it. And don't always listen to the naysayers, because there are always going to be people who want to tear you down. Don't listen to them.
Great advice. Thank you so much. So don't listen to the naysayers. Tell yourself something positive every day
Yeah.
and always question yourself. Is it true? Is that correct?
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Because we will lack confidence about something, but it's usually something that we've heard when we were younger and that we've just put, I keep talking about that library book. We've put it on our shelves. That library, we've got a whole load of information on there, a library of information, but sometimes we put stuff in there that we don't need to. It might have been true at some time, but it more than likely isn't now. So get rid of it. We don't need to dwell on that.
Fantastic. We're actually coming towards the end of our conversation. I could listen to you all day.
Oh, gosh.
There were so many nuggets there. So, one of the things I was going to ask you is if you could give your younger self one piece of confidence related advice, what would it be?
Probably it would be listen to the positives. I know when I was younger, although probably people would have said I was confident, but I often used to listen to the negative stuff. So I think probably I would have done more stuff if I had listened to the positives. So that's what I'd probably have said to my younger self. Listen to the positives. Because we always dwell, somebody it's like a review of a book or something. There could be 20 really great things said about it, but the one that you see is the one review that wasn't so great. And we tend to dwell on that. And I'm not saying ignore those, but listen to the positives. You don't dwell on the negatives.
No, thank you. And if anyone was looking to find out more information about yourself, what is your social media handle? I mean, I will share it as well.
Okay, yeah. So I am on Instagram, although I don't do it very often, as Phyllis Coach, at Phyllis Coach. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Phyllis Woodfine. So that's probably where I'm most active on. And then again on Facebook under my name. But I do have a website, which I'm about to try not to beat myself up over. It needs to be revamped. And that's www.phylliswoodfine.com.
Thank you so much for your time today.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.